Welcome back to My Mom's Basement. It is Robbie Fox, and I am here with Derek from Mayday Parade. This interview, I feel like, is a long time coming for me because I'm a big fan of the band. We're celebrating 20 years of the band on this tour. I've seen you guys live, I don't even know how many times, probably a dozen at this point. So thank you for doing the show. We're here at Pier 17 as well, ahead of your headlining show here.
For sure, man. Thanks for having me. That's really kind. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and it's Pier 17, first time headlining Pier 17?
First time headlining Pier 17.
But you've done it a few times, right?
Yeah. In fact, this is crazy. We got a text today saying that we're the first artist to play here 5 times.
Oh, wow.
Which it seems kind of crazy to me, but I guess it's like relatively new, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know how long this place has been around, like 4 or 5 years maybe, or
probably.
something like that. But yeah, I mean, I guess we've done a couple Sad Summers here. We opened for Yellow Card here.
Mm-hmm.
And then now, first time headlining.
You get like a plaque, a jacket or something 5 times?
I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens. But it's an honor. It's such an amazing venue to have, like, you know, the view and the Brooklyn Bridge behind and everything. And it's one of our favorite venues to play for sure.
Yeah. And I mentioned you're celebrating 20 years of Mayday Parade on this tour.
Mm-hmm.
Does it feel extra nostalgic, extra special playing the set list you're playing?
Yeah, 100%. This tour has been really special for so many reasons. A lot of it is the set itself. I feel like it's a very different set than what we normally do. It's actually kind of funny because it's like I've saw some people in the beginning. You know, there's always going to be people that either love or don't love, you know, the set that you play.
The choices.
And some people are like, oh, I feel like this should be more like nostalgia, like more like playing the songs from the early years and like Less Than Romantics and the big albums. But like, this is actually like that's just like a usual tour. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like in a regular tour, we're going to play a lot of Less Than Romantics. We're going to, you know, but this one's a little more spread out because we're kind of doing the, you know, the eras style of like playing a little bit from every album, like chronologically in order, which we normally don't do. There's a lot of albums that we normally don't play anything off of, you know, so it's really cool to like do it in order like that, you know, and to kind of like go on this journey of like going back to the very beginning. And I don't know, I talk about it a lot on stage, but like in the 20 years we've been a band, I had never like, I was always looking forward, you know what I mean? It was always like, what's next? And so like putting this tour together is like kind of like hitting pause and like looking back. You know, on stage we play these video clips of like the oldest interviews I could find and early clips of the band and things like that and stuff that I had like never gone back to look at. And it's crazy to me. I'm like, we were kids. I mean, like I was 19 years old when we started, and I guess I didn't really realize until like going back to find all that stuff, like just how different we were and how young we, you know what I mean? It's just, It's such a crazy nostalgia trip that I like wasn't really expecting, I guess. Yeah.
I was looking through some old interviews just prepping for this one, and there's funny ones. There's a whole interview just about your bracelets.
Yeah.
Like that one is so funny. You seem so young in that one.
Yeah.
Like, obviously it's like Warped Tour vibes. Everyone's got the teased hair. Everyone's got the same look. The bracelets were such a big thing back then.
For sure.
It is funny looking back. I also saw Jason just joined you guys on stage for the first time in how many years?
Yes. So he and I have done some stuff together, but as far as like the full band, that's the first time he had been on stage with us since January of 2007. So about little over 18 years.
That's crazy. What was that like for you guys?
Oh man, it was so cool. I mean, I knew it was going to be a special moment. Yeah, he had texted me about coming to the show, and then I was just like, man, it would be so sweet to have him come out and do the last 2 songs with us. He was, you know, super sweet about it and loved doing it, and we've been kind of in touch and texting about it since then. And that was a really cool moment for sure. Yeah. And it was a surprise, you know, no one knew it was coming.
On Mayday, right? It was the Mayday celebration.
Exactly. Yeah. The timing of all of it. I mean, he's such a talented dude and just love him. So that was really neat for sure.
Going back to those early days of the band, who were the first bands that you guys toured with and like became friends with? Who was your first kind of circle of bands?
Yeah. Well, you know, the first tour that we did technically was following Warped Tour in 2006. So we weren't playing, we were just following the tour and selling CDs. And I feel like we made friends with a lot of like the other like super like, you know, baby bands of the tour, people following the tour, things like that. And then the first real tour we did was with Wheatus in Melee and a band called Fall of Transition. And we became really close with all of those bands. And still every now and then we'll play festivals with Wheatus and get to
I've seen you guys posting fairly recently, right? You played a festival together?
Yeah. Maybe about a year or two ago in South Florida. And they were, you know, so cool to us. And really like, you know, you need that like as a super young band touring for the first time, you kind of need someone to like mentor you a little bit and like show you the ropes and give you some grace and like, you know, and they were very much that. And then the next tour we did was with the Plain White Tees. And that was also such an incredible experience. And that was the first, you know, like kind of bigger tour that we ever did. And you know, I look back on that tour and kind of cringe at like just how green we were and how, you know, I feel like we probably drove their tour manager crazy a little bit.
With what kind of stuff?
Well, I remember at one point, like we would like show up super early to the venues and stuff, and he'd be like, "Guys, like, come on,
there's no workers
just
here
show up
like...
whenever we tell you to show up," you know. And there's probably a bunch of examples of that kind of stuff. But we were just like so eager and so like we didn't know what we were doing and. But they were like just super kind and would like bring us on the bus to hang with them and I feel like we learned a whole lot on that tour. And then, you know, obviously I've done a ton of tours since then where we've become good friends with so many bands, and so there's a lot. But
yeah. Do you have any early like shows gone wrong Spinal Tap style stories?
You know, nothing too crazy, thankfully. One of the craziest things was actually the very first show of the Plain White Tees tour was in Green Bay, Wisconsin. This was I think it was in January, maybe February. So it's really, really cold. We're from Florida. This was like my first time being around snow in my life, really. And about 20 minutes before our set, I was walking to the van and I had my hands in my like jacket pocket and slipped on the ice on the pavement and just fell and nailed my head on the ice on the pavement and was like bleeding, and we were like, what do we do? There were like, at the time it was the biggest show we'd ever played.
Were you like concussed?
I didn't know it at the time, but I was. So we played the show. I did my best to get through it. It was pretty rough. I was literally like bleeding down my face like during the show.
You were like, this band is punk rock.
Yeah. And then after the show, I was like, oh my God, I'm going to throw up. And so I like ran to the bathroom and threw up, and then like blood started like coming out of my nose. And I was like, I should probably go to the hospital.
Time to go to the hospital.
So, yeah. I went to the hospital and I had a concussion, and I had like fractured the like I don't know,
your
skull,
orbital bone.
Yeah, I guess so, like under my eye here. So I had like a gnarly black eye. I had like pinched a nerve or something. I couldn't feel like this part of my face for. Did
you take any shows off, or was it right back on tour?
It was a show the next day
with like a bloody like Rocky face.
Yeah,
oh my God.
Sure. The next day was the Rave, playing the Rave in Milwaukee for the very first time.
Absolutely classic venue.
Yeah, for sure. And we just we trucked on through it. Man.
Are there pictures of this still out there?
There probably are. It's such a shame that there's not. You know, that's one of the things that I'm like, man, if we had like the amount of content, you know, video and picture content that we have now back in those days, I'm sure we could dig up something. But this was 2007, so I'm not sure.
Digital cameras, not camera phones. Really.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So I'd love to go back through some of the discography, some of the albums, but I want to start with Sweet, the latest EP release.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's great. I love By the Way, the song that I think you guys are opening with on this tour, right?
Yeah.
Where did that come from?
Yeah, well, that was an example of a song that, God, I love when this happens because it doesn't happen very often. I was just at my house washing dishes and started just kind of like hearing that piano melody and was like, oh, that's kind of cool, you know? And then started kind of hearing the vocal melody with it. And I was like, oh, God, I got to go like work.
Get it down right now.
Yeah. So I like ran downstairs, set up I'll do this a lot, set up my phone, just record on voice memo on the piano and just sat and started kind of playing and humming it out. and then like ran to my computer and started actually like building it out. And then like by the end of the day had a finished demo of the song. And I love when that happens because it doesn't happen like that a lot of times. And so it's like, it can be such a painstaking process of like weeks of like just trying to finish writing all the lyrics and trying to put it all together. And when it just like all comes together, and then it's like you can just listen to this demo that none of this existed 12 hours ago, and now it's a whole song, and such an exciting thing. And I was so pumped about the song, and obviously, you know, sent it to the guys, and we all felt really strong about it. And so yeah, that's one of my favorites that we've done in a while. I love that song.
I completely agree. I think that's such a great song. I also love Who's Laughing Now with Knuckle Puck.
Yeah.
Did you know when you wrote that it was like, we need a feature on this song?
Oh, for sure. So Alex, one of the guitar players in the band, wrote that song. Everyone in the band writes songs and kind of submits ideas, and I from the start was like, this song is such a jam, and I knew just kind of because of the vocal style of like, I can't, like, it's so much like overlapping vocals, you know. I was like, we should have someone feature on this, and my gut reaction was Joe. One, because he's just like my boy, one of my best friends, I love him to death, but also just because like his voice I knew would fit so well, yeah, for the style of the song. So we kind of just talked it over a little bit, and we were all like, yeah, that sounds great, you know. So we sent him the offer, and of course, you know, he was happy to do it. And then we've had Nate from Microwave come out and sing the song with us every night on the tour, which has been so cool. Love Nate, love his voice, and it's like, I don't know, just so cool. Like, it's like his own style on it, you know. He like screams the like talky part in the second verse, and so yeah, I'm just so pumped on that song, and we'll get a chance to do it with Joe. I think Warped Tour DC,
sweet,
will be the first time we're like, we played Chicago on this tour, but Joe was playing a show in Philly that night, so he wasn't able to come do it. But that'll be the first time doing the song with Joe. I'm very excited about that.
It's cool bringing up someone from Microwave too. Like, it almost gives a festival feel to a Mayday headlining show when there's some kind of crossover like that, I feel like.
For sure. I think that's like a really important thing. We have Amy from like Roses come out to do a song with us, and Colin from Grayscale comes out to do a song with us, and like, I love that.
Same.
I love to go to a show and the tour, like, you can see that there's this camaraderie, and I don't know, there's just something so special about that. And I feel like, especially like at the end of the night, like the people, they've seen the other bands, and now it kind of culminates in this experience.
And it feels like a thing in this scene too.
Yeah.
That happens maybe because of the Warped Tours and the Bamboozles and the throughout the years, but it feels like that camaraderie and mixing of bands and stuff is just something. There's something about it that all the bands in this scene should do if they don't.
Right. I think, that's probably a lot of where it comes from. I feel like I've been to so many Warped Tours and seen so many like examples of that, and examples of, times where a singer couldn't be there and they'll just have people fill in. There's only one Mayday Parade show in our 20 years that I wasn't at, and it was 2008 Warped Tour. My brother was getting married, so I went to his wedding, and we had different singers,
cool.
Alex from All Time Low, Fred from The Color Fred, Alan and Dan from 4 Year Strong, Vic from Pierce the Veil, Travis and We the Kings, they all came out and just
really
like
cool.
covered,
because that's something for the crowd. If we don't get to see Derek, at least they have the story of, we got to see a bunch of people we've never seen sing these songs, sing them
for sure. And it's like special, it's unique. It's like that's a way of seeing Mayday Parade that no one else is ever gonna get
show.
to. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I wish I could be there. Obviously, if I was there, then but I would have loved to just like see it. And it was a show that, well, first of all, 2008, there weren't as many, like we said, not as much recordings of all that stuff. But also, I think it was like a strict, like, no recording at the venue.
Yeah.
So there aren't many videos of that show. And that's such a shame, because I would love to be able to just sit and watch it from front to back,
Totally. All right. So I'd love to go back through some of the albums and ask about where some of these songs came from.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, we got to start with A Lesson in Romantics.
Mm-hmm.
And as a Jersey kid myself, I'd like to ask about Jersey. It's become such an anthem.
Yeah.
Not only for the band, but for like kids from New Jersey. Like every single pop punk show you go to at Starland Ballroom, that's on the pre-show playlist. It has to be.
Yeah.
So do you remember where that came from? And also, like, what is it about New Jersey that's such a hot spot for pop punk in general.
Yeah, for sure. So that song, when we were on tour with Wheatus, back in 2006, our very first time we ever played in Jersey, and we were talking about this recently. I can't remember what venue it was, but it was a really small, little venue. I don't even know what city it was in. But Jason was in the band at the time, and Jason and his, maybe even they may have been engaged. Maybe his fiance at that point, like, split up. They ended up getting back together and getting married, but they split up, and obviously it was a difficult thing for him. So he started kind of working on the chorus idea. Jersey just got colder, and all that from there. And I remember him kind of showing us that. And this was back when we used to, like, on that Wheatus tour, we were kind of getting ready to go record Less Than Romantic. So we were working on a lot of music on the road, both with like acoustic guitars and just like with sound checks. We'd start kind of playing through ideas. And so Jersey kind of became an idea that we started working on, like, in the van, and then like running through its sound checks and kind of working things out. But that was kind of the start of it. And I don't think we had any idea at the time, how big this type of music is in Jersey and in the Northeast. And so it's kind of one of those, like, I don't know, because Jersey now is like our, we played this sold out show at Stone Pony Summer Stage. It was 4,600, like this, like, crazy.
Yeah.
It's kind of like our best market and our favorite place to play. And I don't know if it's like, it's kind of like the chicken or the egg kind of thing.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's like because of the song that all happened, or if it's just is like,
how quickly did it become like an anthem? Was it as soon as the album came out, it was like everyone gravitated towards that song? Obviously, Jamie All Over is on the album as well, and plenty of songs in that album.
It was one of the favorites, but it's kind of tough. I mean, I feel like it was it took a couple years for anything to really, like, I feel like that's kind of the way it is with all of it. You put out the music, and then I feel like it takes a little bit of time to kind of like see which ones, like, which songs have the legs to, like, really become those, like, core, like, staple Mayday Parade songs. And I feel like it may have taken a little bit, but definitely was a standout song. And we loved the song Fearless, which was our label at the time. They were, they loved that song. And so we kind of knew it was like Jamie All Over, Jersey, Black Cat. Those were like probably our, like, these are the ones that we have to, like, push in the beginning,
Yeah. Do you have a favorite song on that album?
Less Than Romantics?
Yeah.
It would probably, it's tough.
Has it changed over the years?
It's probably changed over the years. I know the last song, You Be the Anchor That Keeps My Feet on the Ground, I'll Be the Wings to Keep Your Heart in the Clouds. That one has always been one of my favorites, and might be my favorite. I mean, that one just, I don't know, is pretty next level. Again, like, that was a song that Jason mostly wrote, and, like, lyrically, I just think is so strong and so beautiful. That would be one of them. There's a song called I'd Hate to Be You, and people find out what the song is about. That one's one of my favorites. That's a song that I wrote about a previous band that we were in when we kind of quit. There were two bands that we sort of quit to form Mayday Parade. I mean, there was this big fallout between us and the old band members, and they had been like our best friends for so long, and it was a really difficult process. So that song was kind of about, like, dealing with all of that pain, and so that song kind of holds a lot of personal weight for me. And then Jamie All Over obviously is just, like, because of what that song has become, and playing that song and the energy that happens is just, like, it's pretty hard
People
to not
go insane as soon as the song starts.
Yeah, you gotta love that. So those are probably a couple of the top ones. Yeah.
And then we move on to Anywhere But Here. Do you feel a ton of pressure at the time recording this, as now you don't have Jason in the band and it's like, okay, it's all on me now?
Oh, man. So the most pressure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, I talk about this a lot, that, like, I feel like we're lucky that we made it through that album and that it didn't destroy us, because it was kind of that typical, young band pretty successful first at debut album, and then follow up without a big part of the songwriting process, upstreamed to a major label, where now we go from Fearless Records to Atlantic Records, and we have no idea what we're doing. I mean, I just feel like we still were like kids and had no time to kind of process everything that had happened with like the success of our first album, and now you've got Atlantic, and you know, I don't mean to say this as like throwing any shade towards them, because I think in the long run they were pretty gracious with us, but when we kind of first signed with them, it was like, okay guys, like we're putting like $300,000 into this album, like we're calling the shots, you know. And we were like, but what, like, you know what I mean, like we just like, but we didn't know like.
And was that musically, was that promotion wise, was that all of the above?
It was kind of all of the above. I mean, I think the budget for the album alone was like $200,000 and probably like $100,000 in marketing or something like that. I mean, I could be getting some of this a little mixed up, but it was, you know, it was a lot of money, but we also were kind of like, this was right when like Paramore had just blown up, and like I think they had like Panic at the Disco, and you know what I mean? Like you see the examples of like, oh, well, they're going to do that with our band, you know, and you're just kind of like naively like, well, sure, if we just like jump through these hoops and do what they want us to do. So we wrote a bunch of songs, and Atlantic was pretty much like, nope, like you guys need to go co-write a bunch of stuff, and like we didn't want to, but we felt like we didn't really have much of a choice.
Oh, wow.
So we kind of went through the whole like circuit of, you know, it was myself and Jake flying to Nashville and flying to LA and flying to New York,
working
and like
with different songwriters,
and I, you know, I feel like I learned a lot from that experience, but I also just kind of hated that experience. And we felt like we had songs that we really loved that Atlantic was just like not on board with, and so it was such of like this, you know, kind of like just trying to make them happy. And, you know, again, at the end of the day, I'm just glad that we all, for a while, we had a lot of disdain for that. Like we didn't like that album because of that whole process. But in the end, I feel like it turned out okay. And there are a lot of things that I love about that album.
I mean, the title track, I feel like, is iconic.
Yeah, for sure. And well, yeah, it's amazing how some of the songs, you know, Anywhere But Here and Kids in Love,
Bruised and Scarred,
like
sure.
are still like kind of like top songs in our, you know, streaming and songs that we'll play, and they kind of go off. And so like, you know, I'm glad that we made it through, but we just totally sort of lost control. They literally would have meetings because we recorded it in New Jersey, and once a week they'd send these people down from, you know, the Atlantic headquarters is in New York City. They'd send these people down, and they would go into the control room, and like at first we thought they were joking because they were like, we're going to listen through everything and talk about it. And we were like, cool, let's do it. And they were like, not with you guys.
Oh, no.
And we were like, ha ha. And they're like, no, seriously. So they would like kick us out of the control room for them to like listen through. And we were just like,
it's mortifying.
Yeah, we were like, what is happening? So anyway, but then I feel like that was such a learning process of like, after that we were like, okay, that's not it. Like we want to go back to just like doing what we did for Less Than Romantics, just like writing songs that we love and recording songs that we love. And sorry if I'm jumping the gun.
No, not at all. But that goes into the self-titled, of course.
Yeah, that was.
Is that why you wanted to say this is Mayday Parade? This is self-titled. This is us.
Exactly. Yeah. Because I feel like we hadn't had that moment yet of like, you know, when we were recording Anywhere But Here, we just still didn't know what we were doing or who we are, what we wanted out of this, and so I feel like we were able to kind of, you know, do that reflection after Anywhere But Here and go, okay, this is what we need to do. And again, you know, Atlantic, they had every right to keep us on the label, and we kind of like essentially asked them like, hey, like this doesn't feel like the right fit for us. Like, is it cool if we go somewhere else?
That's ballsy for a young band to do.
Yeah. And they were cool with it. They like let us go. They let us walk. And so as much as I, you know, there were some weird feelings with the way it was all handled, I think they kind of were like, we get it, like, you know, and they let us walk and do the self-titled album. So yeah, that was an important moment. And again, I talk about a lot of this on stage as we kind of go through, but the self-titled album is maybe my favorite album of ours.
Yeah, it's such a good album. This album, I remember, like, absolutely. I burned it on CD and then had to, like, reburn it because the first CD skipped too much.
Yeah.
So I would play it over and over again.
Yeah.
Oh, well, oh, well. Do you remember writing the outro to that song? Because if we're talking about iconic Mayday Parade parts,
Yeah.
the outro of that is classic.
Yeah, well, so that one is an example of like the opposite of By the Way, where it took, I don't know how long, but like at least a year. It's been so long that it's kind of hard to remember exactly, but I remember, working on that song and feeling really strong about it. But kind of like just having whatever stage of demo of like just some of the music and then maybe some of the vocals, but like, and then we'd go on tour and I would just listen to it in my bunk. I had to have listened to that thing like 1,000 times or more of just, it took so long to finish that song lyrically and putting it all together. And I can't really remember exactly how that outro came together. I just remember the whole process took a really, really long time.
You start to like lose your mind a little bit listening to it that many times. It's one of those, like, if you say a word too many times, it sounds fake.
Right. Yeah. Well, it starts to feel futile. It starts to feel like this is pointless.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I could give this another 100 listens and I'm not going to get anywhere,
Was it like you had the hook and you didn't know where to put like verses? Was it structurally? Was it?
Yeah. I mean, again, like it's kind of hard to piece it all together, but I mean, at some point I had probably just like the intro into the verse into the chorus, and then maybe that was it. And then start kind of piecing it together more. And but it was so painstaking. It was just like bit by bit, piece by piece, putting it together. But yeah, that's one of my favorite songs that we've done, and is still like one of our fan favorites, and it's a song that's done a lot for us, and it's really cool.
And then you go on to Monsters in the Closet, and that is such a great album. I love that album. You're playing Ghosts on this tour, right? And that one has a cool like theatrical flair to it. Where did that come from in the band? Because I feel like that was really like heavy on that.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like maybe it was a lot of just what we were listening to at the time. Probably a lot of it was like My Chemical Romance inspired, or maybe like Deer Hunter.
Okay, yeah.
A little bit of that. Receiving Into Sirens.
Like extra harmonies and stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I've always been really big. I've always loved Queen. Freddie Mercury is probably my like biggest, single inspiration of just like the greatest of all time frontman, singer, songwriter kind of thing. So I think a lot of that's in there. It just kind of came together. That the beginning of it was an idea that Cabbage had, our bass player Cabbage. He had put together this short little demo of a song that, God, I can't remember now. I want to say it might have been like a ukulele or something,
weird.
But it was a very different style of just like the opening. There's a ghost in my bedroom, it haunts me. It was like a ding, 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 like a little like kind of,
that sounds cool too.
Yeah, but it was just that like intro, and I was like, dude, that is so cool. That's so sick. And so I kind of like took that and kind of like worked the rest of the song out from that. I don't know. I feel like it was also us being like very ambitious. It was, you know what I mean? Like, maybe a little overly ambitious, if I'm being honest. But
you think?
Well, I say that I don't know if it's like I don't know. Monsters in the Closet is like not one of my favorite Mayday Parade albums.
Really?
I feel like
the songwriting on it's so good, so like mature.
Well, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. I mean, it's been a while I since I've gone back and listened. I do. I mean, I love things about all of our albums, and I do love a lot of that album. But I feel like we took a lot of big swings with that album. That like, I don't know. Sometimes it's hard not to listen back or look back at that stuff and kind of cringe a little bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
I think anyone with like content that they've made but anything that they've made, you look back on years later,
right?
And maybe you do cringe at a few things here and there.
Yeah, so I think there's a little bit of that. But that album gets a lot of love, and like we don't play much from it, and I always get people asking, why we didn't do anything for the 10-year Monsters in the Closet, and we play one song off of it on this tour. And so a lot of people are like, where's the love, man? Like, where's the love for Monsters in the Closet? So we probably need to give it a little more love.
20-year Monsters in the Closet will be a tour to remember.
For sure, yeah.
And then you go to Black Lines.
Black Lines, yeah.
Very heavy album for Mayday Parade. Were you guys just super angry in the studio making this one?
Well, see, I feel like we weren't angry. I feel like it was... I feel like after Monsters in the Closet, we started to feel like, okay, now we had gotten very comfortable recording with Zach and Ken in Atlanta. And just, I don't know, just, we didn't want to feel like we were just doing the same thing over and over again, you know? And we were really big, probably the biggest, you know, inspiration for that album would have been like Brand New, Devil and God Are Raging Inside Me. Just super inspired with like that kind, and seeing a band go from like pop punk to that, and like crushing it and like doing it well and being successful at it, you know. So I think that was kind of like the mindset, and that's why we went and recorded that album with Mike Sapone. He had done you know, The Devil and God and Deja, Brand New. And
it's a badass album.
Oh man,
it's awesome.
I mean, one of it's tough to say what my favorite studio experience has been, but Black Lines is definitely up there.
Yeah. You know, recording that album with Mike, we were in the Catskill Mountains, just outside of Woodstock, New York, at this old church that had been built in like the late 1800s. It's called Dreamland, I think. That had been converted into a studio. Beautiful spot, just like tucked away in the woods, where we kind of lit this house just down the hill from the studio. Just could not ask for a more amazing studio experience. And Mike is so like patient with us as we were trying to like figure a lot of things out. This is us trying to like switch things up and trying to how to be a different band, honestly. And he was so, I mean, we could spend hours just jamming one part or trying to, you know, get one sound, and he was never like, guys, come on, like we got, you know, he was so down. Yeah, he was so down to chase things with us, and so yeah, I loved recording that album. Again, in hindsight, I feel like we may have leaned a little too hard corrected. We may have overcorrected a little, you know. There are some, because we wanted it to be raw. We wanted it to, you know, there's no auto-tune, there's no tuning on the vocals, which in hindsight I maybe would have changed that. Not that I think any of it sounds bad. I just, you know, again, these are lessons that you learn along the way. You know, if you have 10 vocal takes and you're not doing any tuning, then you're pretty limited to what take sounds the most in tune, versus if you use some tuning, you can go with which take has the best emotion. You know what I mean? Like there's, you know, I feel like there's a lot that we learned. So yeah, we may have overcorrected a little bit and perhaps alienated some fans
by kind of making an album that just didn't really sound like Mayday Parade, you know.
I think it's awesome though. It's so rock and roll.
Yeah. Well, and I think, you know, we do get a lot of people that you know, I feel like at the time it was a little controversial. A lot of people were like, nah, you know.
Really?
But
I didn't realize that.
I mean, it's probably our like least commercially successful album, you know. But same with Monsters in the Closet. There's a lot of people that like give us, you know, love for that album, and playing One of Them Will Destroy the Other, the opening track on the album on this tour, is one of my favorite songs to play live, and it is fun to like be kind of a heavier band for a moment.
Yeah, just go hard real quick.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And the energy in the crowd, even if they don't know the song as much, there's an energy that happens when we play that song. So it's really cool. Yeah.
And then with Sunnyland, do you feel like you're getting back to more of a Mayday Parade sound?
Yeah, I think so. I think that was kind of like okay, what have we learned?
Yeah.
You know, like, and I think a lot of that after Black Lines, it was like, what do people like about our band? You know, it was like what is it that we do well? You know, and kind of trying to like identify that and lock down on that. but at the same time, still trying to not like just feel like we're doing the same thing over and over again, you know?
Yeah.
So I think there is a little bit of that like Black Lines heaviness and aggression in Sunnyland, and a little bit of that like, you know, trying some new things and but at the same time like going, this is, you know, we write kind of sad, emotional pop punk emo songs, and that's what people seem to like enjoy about our band and our music. And so I was kind of trying to like, you know, put all those things together, and that's one of my favorites. Sunnyland. I think top 3 for me. I don't know about what order, but yeah, self-titled, Less Than Romantics, and Sunnyland are top 3 Mayday Parade albums for me. Yeah,
I love that. And then we move on to What It Means to Fall Apart.
Mm-hmm.
One for the Rocks and one for the Scary. Such a great half and half song.
Yeah.
Where did that one come from?
Yeah, that's a song that I put together. That's one of my favorite songs in our whole catalog. I love that song.
It's a bit of the Mayday Day in the Life.
Yeah,
where it has that 2 halves.
Right, for sure. I feel like that song, I wish got more love than it did. I think it flew under the radar a little bit. And I get it's a little jarring, and it was a tough sell.
Yeah,
because
to the band or to
the band.
Okay.
To the band, because, you know, I put together the demo, and of course it's this kind of more ballad, sweet first half of the song, and then like boom, it fires into this like, you know, punk rock beat, like high energy second half. But I don't really know where that came from, other than just kind of messing around with ideas and just going, I like this works well. But I remember the guys at first being like, does it need to do that? Like, do we, you know, and we even tried in the studio, and this is one of those, like, you know, being in a band, and there's, you know, the 5 of us in the band have an equal vote and everything, and equal say in how things go. So there are a lot of times that I get pretty attached to something and go, it should be like this, and it doesn't end up being like that.
Gets outvoted,
and it's so heartbreaking. And so I was so anxious about that song of like, please don't mess this up, you know.
Don't ruin my baby.
Yeah. And we tried kind of rearranging that bridge and keeping it more of a ballad, and like having strings that come in and do whatever, and it just didn't feel right. So we kept it.
Maybe it's a little bit of the Queen fan in you.
Yeah,
it's
for
got
sure.
that like creativity about it.
I just, you know, there's something about like, I want it to be fun. You know what I mean? Like, and doing stuff like that, especially like after, you know, recording so much music and so many songs, it's like, let's throw in like a total switch up, you know, like that's fun to me. And it's unexpected, you know, like you don't want to get too predictable. You know what I mean?
I love that about plenty of bands. I like when you could look through a band's discography and say, that's the blank album. That's the blank album. I'm like a huge Kiss fan. I like being like, that's the Kiss grunge album. That's the Kiss disco album. Like they were trying things, you know?
Right.
And they were taking the music in different directions. Even if you don't like the full album, you'll find a few tracks where you're like, that was cool. They tried something new there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that's kind of the vibe. And we play that song on this tour, and it is a lot of fun when it switches. There, I always try to entice a little circle pit
going.
And a lot of times it's so fun because like that energy from that part like kind of carries through. Like it's interesting how that like there's almost like a spark, you know, that goes, and then like there's an energy that kind of continues through the rest of the set, and that can happen a lot of times with that song. And then this is random, but the title, One for the Rocks and One for the Scary, is from Pete's Dragon. I don't know if you guys know Pete's Dragon, the old Disney movie.
Yeah. I did not know that's where it was from, but I have heard of Pete's Dragon. I don't know if I've ever seen it.
Oh, man. The original, as a kid, was just like one of my absolute favorite movies. And there's a part where they're like, the 2 guys are like drunk walking down the beach, and they're like, we'll have one for the rocks and one for the scary. And anyway, that's where the title comes from. Yeah.
And then there's obviously EPs, there's singles as well. I want to ask about some covers. Did you enjoy doing like the Pop Goes Punk stuff back in the day? I've talked to bands who hated it. I've talked to bands who loved it. Like, it's very mixed, I feel like.
I'll tell you what, I loved doing the Gautier, Somebody That I Used to Know cover.
Yeah. Would that be your favorite cover that the band has done?
That's probably my favorite the band has done. I feel like that's, probably just the favorite all around, and also the one that I feel like we did the best job of like making it different and kind of making it our own, because it is a good bit different than the original. You know, we kind of made it like a major feeling song versus like the minor feel of the original. The first two, the When I Grow Up and the In My Head, I didn't love those as much. But, you know, that being said, I feel like I can appreciate them, and like it's fun.
So like that time.
Yeah.
Too. It feels like all of the songs on those albums just feel like that time. It's so nostalgic.
Yeah, I think that's part of it, is that now, like, going back, I can like appreciate it more. I think a lot of it is at the time, like, I wasn't into those songs, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, we had our band vote of like, what song are we going to do? And I think we literally decided that we were going to do the Pussycat Doll song, When I Grow Up, the day before we went into the studio to do it. And I was just like, this song, like what, you know, and like, how are we going to do this? You know, I think it turned out, you know, pretty cool actually, but it was a difficult experience for sure. Yeah.
And then I have this, because the podcast is called My Mom's Basement. You talk about a lot of nerdy stuff. Is there anything that you nerd out about?
I'm huge into video games.
Is that what you're doing, like, when you're not on tour, playing video games?
Yeah, I mean, like, that's kind of, you know, obviously this, you know, balance of everything. Like, I don't, you know, game like all day. I honestly, I play games on tour more than anywhere else, just because
I guess that makes sense.
There is more.
And what games are we playing?
So on this tour, I was actually kind of holding off to play Silent Hill 2 remake.
Okay.
And played that and loved it.
So a lot of single player stuff?
Yeah, because at home I play a lot of Call of Duty online and like Rocket League and just, you know, online games like that.
Do the guys in the band play too? Is there a chance that you're playing Call of Duty against all of Mayday Parade?
No, sadly. I wish they played more of it, but no, no one else is really that big into it. Jake plays a lot of FIFA, but that's kind of all he plays. Cabbage plays a lot of games, but like he's more of like, he wants to watch people play video games, you know, which is great for like out on the road.
People around.
You know? Yeah. And then the other guys aren't really gamers at all. And so a lot of times I will save my like campaign based games for a tour, because it's you have more time and less Wi-Fi to do that kind of stuff. So Final Fantasy VII Rebirth was the last game that I had done before Silent Hill 2. Rebirth and remake, amazing. I don't know. I'm really big on like what they're doing with all these
remasters and stuff,
these remakes and stuff. Yeah, because it's just so cool to like get to experience something that is such a huge part of your childhood and that you have so much nostalgia for, but you get to like re-experience it in a new way. There's something so amazing about that. I mean, it's beautiful. I mean, it's like a kick to the stomach, the nostalgia. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, and yeah, Silent Hill 2 remake, I think, is, you know, one of the best survival horror games of all time. And then, I mean, I don't know how much you want to nerd out about it. All the Resident Evil games, the remakes, Resident Evil 2 remake.
So that's do you feel like that's your main genre, like the Resident Evils, the Silent Hills, like a little bit scary?
I mean, that's my favorite video game of all time, is probably the OG Resident Evil for PS1. Yeah. But also a lot of, you know, all the Final Fantasy games and a lot of RPGs, the Zelda games, The Last of Us and Last of Us 2 are...
We were just talking about that on the way over.
Yeah, two of the greatest, I mean, just like masterpiece in storytelling.
It's like you're playing a movie almost.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of it, you know, Uncharted, all the Uncharted games, Uncharted 4, I think, is up there and like one of the greatest video games ever made. I mean, all kinds of stuff, really. A lot of big on games. It's like my other passion other than music. If I had to be involved in something other than music, it would probably be. I don't think that I have what it takes to. I've been trying to learn how to make video games a little bit, and I've made some very basic. There's a game that I've been making where you play as my cat, and you just kind of run around the house knocking stuff off shelves.
That's
and
cool.
Things. But
I think that's really cool. Yeah.
Yeah. If I ever like finish it, I'll but.
Maybe we could see you scoring a game one day.
And I do that as well. I love making music. I made the music for my cat video game. And I also make music for okay. This is a little rabbit hole. I don't know if we want to go down this or not.
Go down the rabbit hole.
Okay, so in 2017 for the 10-year Lesson Romantics tour, we filmed a movie because that tour was like the longest. It was like over 2 months. It was almost 2.5 months. And myself and Cabbage and our content guy at the time, Mike Wilson, were like, we have so much time on this tour. Like, let's write a movie and film a movie on this tour. It's like a cheesy 80s, early 90s action movie. All the stereotypes. I'm huge on all those like Arnold Schwarzenegger, Sylvester Stallone movies. So it's called The Devil's Eye. And we filmed it on the tour. I mean, I'd be embarrassed to tell you how many hours we put into writing this thing, getting all of the costumes and props, and filming this thing, editing this thing. Yeah. I did all the special effects for it.
You did the special effects? Wow.
The most expensive part of the movie so far was buying an After Effects package that was like $400 of like explosions and gunshots and like all this stuff. So I can add all that in. There's like this laser weapon thing at the end of the movie that I did all the special effects for. None of this is great, but like it's
impressive that you did it though.
But it took, hours and hours of all this, and then it was scoring the music to it, and we're not done. Now this is almost 10 years ago.
Oh my God.
So we're still not done, but now, and not that we've been like we'll go years without touching it,
This is your Winds of Winter.
My goal is to finish it by the 20-year Lesson in Romantics tour. And then put it out on that tour as like we filmed this 10 years ago on the 10-year, and now we're releasing it on the 20-year. So hopefully that happens. But doing the music for that has been so much fun.
Yeah.
It's really fun to work on music. The most difficult part of songwriting to me is writing lyrics. So it's so much fun to work on music that has no lyrics, like for video games or for movie scoring and things like that. But I'm big on that. It's a lot of fun.
All right, so my final question for you, and this is my final question for all the bands or artists that I interview. I'm a big Oasis fan, and Noel Gallagher says that he summed up everything he ever wanted to say with 3 songs: Live Forever, Rock and Roll Star, and Cigarettes and Alcohol.
Wow.
He said after that, he's just repeating himself with different songs.
Wow.
If you had to pick 3 Mayday Parade songs that you feel sum up everything you've ever wanted to say, which 3 would you select?
Whew, gosh, that's tough, but just off the top of my head, I'm going to go... All right, so By the Way's got to be in there, because I feel like that's a bit of something new for us that we hadn't touched on before, that I feel like we needed to. I'm a huge Third Eye Blind fan. That's one of my favorite bands of all time, and By the Way to me is a very Third Eye Blind kind of inspired song. I'm going to go One for the Rocks and One for the Scary, part of what we were talking about earlier, just because of that. You get so much of what we are and what we do in that song. And I'm going to go Oh Well, kind of for the same reason, but like I feel like has more of that like, early 2000s emo.
Screaming the lyrics along, when you're driving in your car, Yeah, very like, that the bridge ending, outro, kind of anthemic. If I had to pick 3, I think I'll go those 3. Great selections. I appreciate the time. Again, this was awesome getting to pick your brain about all these songs.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
Go see Mayday Parade on tour if you can. If they're coming to your city, we'll put the dates in the description and everything.
All right. Thanks for having me, man. Appreciate it.